Right, so we're going to do just this patch pocket now. It's got a hem at the top, it's turned under, point at the bottom, and then to reflect this point we've got a pocket flap that has a similar point on it as well. So not hard, but it'll be good to show you how to sew the pocket flap on so that there's no like overlocking or raw edges underneath
And
too.
how much is that above the... I suppose you'll
Oh
talk
yeah,
about that when you
I've
sew
done
it.
well. I probably would have forgotten to do that, but it's 2 centimeters.
Too.
Yeah, so this from here to the top of the pocket,
Yeah.
and just keep in mind too, like if you had a button on here, the button would probably go right on the edge of the hem there. If you've only got a button going through one layer, it's a good idea to put a little round bit of fabric behind it, just so that it's going through 2 layers and it'll be a bit more secure. Because with use, this will the button will pull out. So yeah, always consider where your buttonhole is and where the button's going to end up.
I guess you can make that facing a bit longer.
Yeah, you could do too. And the other thing too is maybe even like moving the buttonhole down a little bit, although you do have the bulk of the seam allowance in there, which gets a bit lumpy when you turn the corners. So yeah,
That's something
anyway.
to consider when you're doing that.
Yeah. So we'll sew the pocket on first, and what I've done in preparation, I've overlocked along the top hem here, just through the one layer, and then I've taken it to the machine, to the iron, and I've pressed under the seam allowances. They're just 1 centimetre. Actually, that looks bigger than 1 centimetre. So I didn't use a tape measure to check this. I did it by eye. So just make sure, like, have a tape measure and measure that.
Does it get stitched across the hem from that one or not?
It does, I think. Yes. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Good thinking, Libby. So we're just going to.
And this is up to you. You decide where you want top stitching.
Yeah, it really depends on, because you might put pockets on something that never actually ever get used, so it might be more about the design details and about the practicality. But yeah, generally pockets are meant to be used, so they need to be, workable. So I'm positioning this on the fabric here. What you would do on your actual pattern, you'd have a drill hole that would be from the corner, it would be 5mm down and 5mm in on both top corners here. Generally, if the pocket's not very big, you don't need to put marks down here, because if you position it here, position it there, and then pin it, it'll generally sit in place. And I'll just check what type of. Yeah, so what I did on that one was I just started at the top corner here, did a back tack, and then I'm literally doing a pin stitch on the edge of the fabric.
So you want to try and get close to the edge, but without running off. That's
Well,
the trick.
yes, I did actually have a little bit where I ran off there, which I'll show you in a minute, but yes, it's a fine line between getting nice and close to the edge. And remember, if you want to move the pocket around underneath the foot, you can use the hand wheel to get the needle up. Then you can move and put the foot up as well, and then move the fabric underneath, and then just go down again. Okay, so that's just stitched in place, and you can see here, I was a little bit wobbly there, and I literally went actually all the way off the pocket here. So if I was making this garment, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, that's good enough. I would actually unpick that, and I know it's much more obvious in the black thread, but you really need to set a standard for yourself.
Sometimes you just need to slow down, but for the sake of getting through this quickly, I'll just...
Yeah, exactly. Take it.
always do quality control on your work.
And here I'm going to do my new method of sewing pockets here.
That's right. Go through to the end.
So literally just stitch it all the way along. Oh, what am I doing? That's wrong. I've just forgotten I was
4.
using the 1. I'm supposed to be using the 4 for the 1 centimetre.
I can put little chalk marks. If you're just making one garment, you can put chalk marks, but we don't do that in production. We use drill holes or methods like this.
Yeah, this corner in particular, because it's so flat, it's easy to get it, like pushing it off to one side, so you actually end up with the point, like over here as opposed to in the middle. And remember, if you're using this method, that you can't clip the corners off because they'll come undone, and you'll have holes in the corners of your pockets. But just fold on the stitch line, put your finger in there just to hold them down, and then poke it through.
Yeah, it works really well.
And you get a nice sharp corner. And this one here, I'm just going to wiggle it with my fingers. Usually I'd use a pin to get that out, but I don't have one handy, so yes, it's pretty good. And then this is a very shallow point here, so it really is a bit tricky to work out where it's supposed to be. I mean, you could measure across there and put a pin in there to show that's where you need to turn the corner, but I'm not going to do that right now. And then do your top stitching, and your top stitching usually is the same as on the pocket. So if you pin stitch the pocket in place, then you do a pin stitch around the edge of the pocket. Okay, and you can see that sort of ended up as a bit of a slight curve there. So in this instance, I'd probably go back and make that maybe in like another 1/2 centimetre longer, because it is a bit flatter than the bottom of the pocket. So maybe just copy that on the bottom, and then we need to stitch this in place. So we've got the right side down, and we're going to position it. Do we want the stitch line? So the stitch line's only 4 millimeters, so that 4 millimeters will be above, so from there to there, and if that's 2 centimeters, that's 1.6 from here to here. You can you can use the tape measure to measure that. And remember too that generally it's a little bit nicer if your pocket flap is a little bit wider than the actual pocket itself. I mean, here, I've got it so it's minimally, so it's literally like 2 millimeters bigger on each side. But just see what you like. Play with it.
That looks good.
And just even though this edge is going to be stitched down, you're still going to get little bits sticking out, so just give it a little trim, but don't trim it so much that it falls off. Okay, so then we're going to fold this down, and we're going to do a foot width stitch here.
That's 6 millimeters.
Yeah, so putting the outside of the foot along that top fold there. And here, just a bit more of a trim. So some of them you can push off. If you've got a longer thread, you can actually just push it underneath as well. And there's your pocket flap in place. You could do a buttonhole now, but generally, I didn't mention it before, but generally you would do the buttonhole before you sew the pocket flap onto the garment as well.
Easier.
Yeah. Okay, done.